Mark, I don't want to beat to death this idea that this was a black op false flag for the sole purpose of getting the sheeple American people behind the idea of a gun ban. Okay, we do not have to spend a lot of time on this call discussing that. But I do want to point out that one of the major inconsistencies in this story, as you well know, is that it was reported immediately on the first day, multiple times, over multiple venues, that the shooter, Adam Lanza, was found with 2 handguns.
Correct. And the rifle was in the trunk of his car.
That's right. The assault rifle was in the trunk of his car. Later, to fit the official story and the coroner's report, it was then changed, and it was said that the assault rifle was found next to his body, and that 3 other guns, we don't know who those guns were registered to, were also found, and it was not disclosed as to where they were found. So as we see the man in the woods arrested by police and 2 other men fleeing in a van detained by police, why in God's name aren't there any cops in Connecticut coming forward to talk about what happened to those 3 men?
Well, it's funny you mention that, because I heard reports that there were over 1,200 police officers that responded to the scene, and I don't even know how that's responsible for local and state law enforcement to saturate an area like that. The way that they're responding to these situations is ridiculous. I'm not an expert on active shooter, although I do have a lot of experience in active shooter. I think one of the glaring inconsistencies that you talk about is the fact that you then have the state medical examiner going on to say that these poor victims were shot multiple times with a rifle. So how is it that they were shot multiple times with a rifle that was in the assailant's vehicle? Things don't add up. But the thing that you mentioned, sheeple, and the one thing that really bothers me, Sean, is the fact that the people in this country, the sheeple in this country, are so far gone that they actually believe that somebody like President Obama can legislate these things from not happening anymore. That's an absolute joke, because murder is already against the law, okay? And you can't pass laws that would guarantee you from not having people committed to doing random acts of violence. That's not possible, no matter whether you take away people's guns or whatever you try and legislate. I think that's grossly negligent of him to lure people into a false sense of security.
No, you're absolutely right, Mark. I mean, we know by looking at Chicago, where there's a gun ban, and New York City, correct me if I'm wrong, where there's a gun ban, that oftentimes where there are gun bans, those are the areas of highest crime, because those are the areas where only the criminals have guns. Now, what the American sheeple seem unable to understand, those that are posting on Facebook that you should defriend me if you don't believe we should ban guns. My wife was seeing some of those this weekend. These people do not understand our Bill of Rights. They do not understand. They can't even tell you what the First Amendment is. They cannot tell you what the Second Amendment is, nor can they tell you why the founders gave us the Second Amendment and made it the Second Amendment. It is the last line of defense standing between a free people and a tyrannical government. And
it has nothing to do with hunting. It has nothing to do with hunting.
Absolutely not. And the fear that all of us who are awake have is this tyrannical government, which we have demonstrated it is prior to this, is now moving decisively against the Second Amendment and against that last line in the sand of our defense as a free people. Now, Stuart Rhodes of Oath Keepers is saying, quote, repealing the Second Amendment would start another civil war, end quote.
I'm glad you brought this up, because this is one question that I want to ask to the people out there, whether they're gun owners, whether they're hunters but own guns and don't consider themselves target shooters, whatever class of individual you fall into, whether you own guns or not. The question I have for people is this. We know that whatever laws that they pass will have no effect on the amount of violence that happens in our society with or without guns. As our society degenerates more and more, as the economy gets worse, as people get more desperate, we're going to see more and more acts of random violence, okay? And my question to people is, what is going to happen if they pass whatever laws that they want tomorrow or next week or next month, in a year or two from now, we still have all of these incidents going on, and at that point, what are they going to tell you? that it didn't work, the laws didn't work, now we have to take your guns. That's what we're being set up for, and that's what people don't understand, okay? There's no way that these people can legislate any of these issues away. And the problem, Sean, that I see is that people do not want to look in the mirror. They do not want to accept personal responsibility. They do not want to look at the things that are plaguing our society, such as violence in Hollywood, violence on television, violence in video games, a general lack of parenting in this country. People do not want to look in the mirror at what is causing these issues in society. We do not have a problem with guns. We have a broken, morally bankrupt society that is as bankrupt morally as it is financially, and this is how it behaves. If you are a doctor, you do not treat a symptom. You treat a disease or a sickness.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. We are now a society that is only capable of the easy answers, right? So if it's bailouts for banks to keep the economy going, no one questions it because nobody is intelligent enough to dig deeper and care. I mean, 5% of us are, but the majority of the public is completely dumbed down. They live on fast food, they live on bad television, and they believe everything the Mockingbird mainstream media tells them. And the problem with this particular scenario is that even if it wasn't a false flag, the powers that be are going to get exactly the reaction they want out of the sheeple, which is, oh, guns are a problem, let's ban guns.